When did you begin to feel so stretched thin, so dispersed among the endless needs of others? The person who appears when summoned, responds when called, shows up when demanded. What if the greatest act of self-preservation isn't what you do, but what you finally refuse? You stand perpetually ready, phone in hand, mind racing with obligations. The constant vigilance has become so familiar you mistake it for normal. This is not living. This is a permanent state of anticipation. You've become available in ways that slowly erode who you are. Each notification, each "can you just" request creates tiny fractures in your sovereignty. The cracks expand with every boundary crossed. The truth waits silently beneath your exhaustion. Being endlessly available isn't generosity. It's a slow surrender of your essential self, an unconscious agreement to exist primarily for others' convenience. Sigmund Freud recognized this pattern long before our hyperconnected age. Most people do not really want freedom, he observed, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Your availability is the modern manifestation of this fear. Being constantly accessible shields you from the weightier burden of defining yourself outside of others' needs and expectations. Freud's insight invites a disturbing question. What responsibility to yourself have you been avoiding through perpetual availability to others? What choices remain unmade while you respond to everyone else's urgencies? The unconscious mind, Freud taught us, operates beneath our awareness yet governs much of our behavior. Your compulsive availability serves hidden purposes. It provides external validation, creates an illusion of importance. Perhaps most significantly, it protects you from the terrifying prospect of being alone with yourself, with your thoughts, your desires, your disappointments, and the uncomfortable silence of your own company. The pattern continues until something breaks. Not dramatically, but in the quiet moments when you realize you've become a stranger to yourself. A well-trained response system disguised as a human being. What you seek isn't merely better time management or assertiveness training. The transformation waiting for you requires descending into darker waters, examining why you've made yourself so accessible in the first place. Freud pioneered the exploration of these internal landscapes. The archaeology of your availability begins with understanding that your behavior serves unconscious needs, perhaps to be needed, to avoid rejection, to maintain control. To cease being perpetually available feels like a small death. The fear rises like smoke. If I'm not there for everyone, who am I? If I'm not responding, do I still matter? If I'm not needed, do I exist? This fear reveals the first layer of truth. Your availability has become entangled with your identity. The path forward requires separating who you are from what you do for others. The first shift happens in the space between stimulus and response. The notification arrives. The request lands. The familiar urgency rises. And then a pause, a breath, a moment of choice. In this suspended moment lives your first taste of freedom, not in grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but in the quiet dignity of considered response rather than conditioned reaction. Your unavailability becomes a mirror, reflecting back to others their own patterns of demand and expectation. Watch as they adjust to this new reality, some with respect, others with resistance. Those who value you beyond your utility will adapt. Those who primarily sought access to your resources may disappear. This natural sorting reveals the true nature of your relationships with painful clarity. The system around you destabilizes when you withdraw your constant presence. Like water finding new channels, people discover resourcefulness they didn't know they possessed. Problems solve themselves. The world continues. This revelation arrives with both relief and regret. How many years spent believing you were essential to situations that resolve themselves perfectly well without you? The humbling truth of your dispensability emerges. Yet in this humbling lies profound liberation. You are not responsible for holding everyone's world together. The universe operates quite effectively without your constant vigilance and intervention. As you practice selective unavailability, an unsettling emptiness may emerge. The space previously filled with others' needs now echoes with your own unaddressed questions. Who are you when no one is asking for anything? This void is fertile ground. Freud understood that civilization demands significant repression of our true desires. Your constant availability has been part of this bargain, sacrificing authenticity for acceptance. Now you stand at the threshold of rediscovery. The reclamation of time creates room for forgotten passions, neglected curiosities, and the slow, essential work of remembering what matters to you. The world responds differently to someone who possesses themselves. Your newfound selectivity with attention creates a gravitational shift. You no longer orbit others. They begin to orbit you. This isn't manipulation, but natural law. What becomes scarce increases in perceived value. Your attention, now thoughtfully given rather than automatically granted, carries weight it never had before. Relationships transform when you stop being reflexively available. Conversations deepen. Time together becomes intentional rather than incidental. The quality of connection replaces the quantity of contact. Your boundaries will be tested. The systems and people accustomed to your constant availability will push back, sometimes forcefully. They sense the shift in power dynamics and may attempt to restore the previous order. This resistance confirms you're moving in the right direction. The discomfort others express about your boundaries reveals how they benefited from their absence. Their reaction is not your responsibility. If this journey resonates with you, consider how your life might transform if you continued reclaiming pieces of yourself. Your unavailability is not selfishness, but self-preservation, the necessary protection of your limited energy. Freud recognized that civilization requires the sublimation of instincts, channeling our natural drives towards socially acceptable outlets. Your new challenge: finding healthy expression for your need to matter without sacrificing autonomy. The art of strategic unavailability becomes a practice of presence. When you do choose to be available, you arrive fully, not fragmented across 1,000 digital distractions and looming obligations. This quality of attention becomes your gift, more valuable precisely because it isn't granted automatically. You offer something increasingly rare: undivided presence, thoughtfully bestowed rather than compulsively given. Your nervous system begins to recalibrate. The perpetual vigilance, that state of constant readiness to respond, slowly fades. Your body remembers how to rest without the underlying current of anticipation. Sleep deepens. Thought clarifies. Creativity, which requires fallow periods and unstructured time, gradually returns. These are the dividends of reclaimed sovereignty, the natural abundance that follows protected space. The process moves through phases. First comes the guilt, the uncomfortable feeling that you're somehow failing others by not instantly responding. This discomfort must be weathered, not avoided. Then arrives anger, recognition of how much you've given without conscious choice. This anger isn't destructive but clarifying, burning away the compulsive need to please that has driven your behavior. Finally emerges acceptance, the peaceful understanding that your availability is yours to give, not others to take. This sovereignty becomes neither rigid nor reactive, but fluid and intentional. Those who truly cherish you will adapt to this evolution. Real connection doesn't require constant contact, but thrives on mutual respect. The relationships that remain grow stronger, rooted in choice rather than obligation. Professional dynamics shift as colleagues and clients encounter your new boundaries. Your work improves precisely because you're no longer fragmented across countless interruptions and demands. The quality of your output increases as quantity decreases. You produce less, but better, each creation carrying the full weight of your focused attention rather than the diluted effort of divided consciousness. This transformation extends beyond productivity. Your selective unavailability creates space for contemplation, those necessary periods when the mind processes experience into wisdom, information into understanding. You rediscover silence, not as emptiness to be filled, but as presence to be experienced. In these quiet moments, the parts of yourself long silenced by external demands begin to speak again. Dreams return, both sleeping and waking. Aspirations dormant for years reawaken. Desires long suppressed resurface. The energy previously devoted to maintaining availability now fuels possibility and renewal. If you're still with me, perhaps you sense the truth in these words. Perhaps some part of you recognizes the cost of your constant availability and longs for the freedom that awaits beyond it. Freud observed that being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Honesty now requires asking, what have I been avoiding through perpetual availability? What truths wait in the silence of my own company? The withdrawal symptoms are real. The dopamine hits of being needed, the validation of constant connection. These psychological rewards don't release their hold easily. Expect discomfort as you detach. Yet beyond this discomfort waits a more authentic existence. Not perfect, but yours. Not constantly responsive, but deeply present. Not eternally accessible, but genuinely available when you choose to be. The transformation happens gradually, then suddenly. Small changes in behavior, delayed responses, declined invitations, protected time, accumulate until one day you realize you're living differently. You're living as yourself. What Freud understood about the human psyche remains true. The tension between our individual needs and social demands creates necessary compromise. But compromise need not mean capitulation. Your availability becomes a conscious gift rather than an unconscious habit. You show up by choice, not compulsion. You respond from centeredness, not reactivity. You engage from fullness, not depletion. The world adjusts to your boundaries more easily than you imagined. The catastrophes you feared rarely materialize. The few who cannot respect your limits reveal themselves as attachments better released. What remains is a life more deliberately lived. Relationships based on mutual respect rather than accessibility. Work flowing from focused attention rather than fragmented obligation. Time that belongs truly to you. In the end, Freud's most enduring insight may be this. Beneath our conscious choices lie deeper currents of meaning and motivation. Your journey beyond constant availability leads to these depths. What you discover there, the authentic self waiting beneath the responsive persona, becomes your true gift to the world. Not your endless accessibility, but your honest presence. Not what you do, but who you are. When you stop being available for everything, you become available for what matters. This is not selfishness, but clarity. Not withdrawal, but discernment. Not absence, but presence of a quality previously impossible. The choice now belongs to you alone. The familiar path of constant availability stretches before you, well-worn and predictable. Beside it runs another way, less traveled, more uncertain, but leading toward yourself. Which will you choose?